GM, everybody. This is Kianga Ellis Projects. And today is Thursday, February 6th, 2025. And this is the Thursday Rural Rapid Response Network live stream meeting. Live streaming on X. And actually, let me share this on my personal. Live streaming on YouTube. Hey, YouTube. And on Rumble. The Rumble in the, well, it's not really a jungle where I am. It's like a snow jungle. Oh, you can see that it's snowing outside. And it's a bit cold and dark. And, I work in an industry that doesn't sleep. That's 24/7, 365, worldwide. And it was really active during my nighttime this past evening. So I seem a little low energy. That'll be why decentralized finance doesn't sleep. And so sometimes, neither do I. But I'm happy to be with you again, back again, to talk about citizen adjacent action. What we're going to do about these bobbleheads. Right, Mr. Carter? May you rest in peace. Bobbleheads, I'm sorry. You all are just not doing the job. But that's okay, right? Because we are ready, willing, and able. The citizens of this nation, the great state of Maine, vacation land, the way life should be. And we're going to take it from here. We're good. We're just going to shrink the government as we know it. Just bye-bye. We're good. You've gotten out of hand for far too long. We'll take it over. We'll take it from here. So today, what I thought I would do is kind of take stock of the past couple of weeks since I launched this live stream and started talking about the idea of a rural rapid response network and started talking about citizen adjacent action and what does it look like for us as regular, ordinary people to take a new level of responsibility, a new level of accountability, a new level of interest in our local governance, our municipal structures, and what all just works. How does it work? And how do we get informed? Number one, how do we get informed for ourselves? Number two, how do we get informed so that we can be of service to our community and to our neighbors, and that we can have more confidence that in the present and into the future, we are going to be in much better shape than we've certainly seen in very many communities over the recent months and years as far as disaster response and recovery, other types of tragedies, man-made and nature-made or man-caused. Well, it's all man-caused. It's a mix, right? It's a mix. It's a mix of man and nature and elements and maybe some agitators. We're finding out what's really been going on. And I think there's a lot of capable people digging in on that. Here at the Rural Rapid Response Network, we are focused on our actions locally. I'm coming to you from Downeast, Maine. And this is the hub, I guess the genesis location for the Rural Rapid Response Network. And today I thought I could use this time to do some pen on paper. So I've over the past couple weeks talked to you about some local meetings I've attended, the statewide Infrastructure Rebuilding and Resilience Commission and their report and their meetings. And all of that work has been a way to just do my own first order of learning as to how to just orient myself here as a new Mainer. Although I don't know, maybe I shouldn't, maybe that's a bad way of referring to myself. That has some baggage, but I'm trying to earn my stripes as one of the welcome new additions to this great state. And so yes, I've been interested in this urgent burning sensation that I've had to do more and do more with my time, do more with my work to stretch outside of my comfort zone. And what started as something I thought I would do at a pro bono basis, largely focused on offshore wind and how to prevent that development from going forward, has, I would say, evolved and now probably transitioned, because with each passing day, I mean, it was a meeting that I had on my calendar for today at 5 that was supposed to be a kickoff for the next phase of public input regarding the mid-coast, mid-Atlantic offshore wind development. And that's been canceled because of the executive orders. And I think while we want to keep an eye on what had been in motion and, you know, the executive orders to stop offshore wind development, you know, they're kind of a couple different pieces to that. And I'm not sure that there's an outright ban at this point on anything that is operating in flight. So there's still a lot of work to do there and a lot of things to button up. And of course, that goes for anything that's able to happen with an executive order. We're going to see the courts get involved in absolutely everything. And then despite whatever powers the executive branch might have, there's going to have to be legislation around a lot of this. And we're seeing a widespread shakeup in how government is being done on the federal level. It is affecting all the states greatly. And Maine is, yeah, I think Maine is definitely big time in the crosshairs. The state has been extremely left progressive leaning and led, which means from the very limited amount that I've seen, but I've been spending a very many number of hours, I would say, over the past month and 6 weeks, which feels like almost a lifetime. It feels like years. Not only am I discovering so much of government service and operations that I would have thought was handled directly by the government, that I would have thought there were people in the seats paid by the state or the county to do all of this work. It turns out that nonprofit organizations are inextricably linked, and federal grant funding is a massive, it just runs all the things, runs so much. And a lot of the work that's been done that I've seen from, you know, going to these various meetings, reading local papers, and trying to get myself more familiar with how things are really, how the sausage is made on the ground. Climate change has been the framing for so much that involves our infrastructure, energy, I would say even economic development. So with this project, those are kind of our sweet spots of policy focus, even though, the project is really very much tangible. Like, we'll get into it a little bit, I guess, in this meeting as I start to write some things down together live with you all, that it is a very hands-on, service-oriented project. But obviously within that, in order to be of effective service, we need to be extremely informed about our environment and our policy environment and where things are going, and we want to participate in that to whatever extent it makes sense. And if we are in this role of being eyes and ears on the ground at our local meetings, and we want to be hubs of information and a catalyst for informing our towns and our communities and being a resource, then I think it's going to naturally make sense that we'll have our own informed view and perspective on policies and what's happening, even if it's not sort of part of our mission or mandate to directly engage that. So this is not exactly a sort of typical political activism, kind of space. It's more, well, the things we may agitate about, what else can we do to address the impacts as they are? What can we do with what we have that doesn't have dependencies on things that are temporary or things that are fragile or things that can go away, like federal funding, especially right now? And how are we going to, at a practical level, take care of our basic needs as people together in an actual community? And so we'll use all these fancy tools, the internet and all of that, to connect and communicate. But this project will need foot soldiers on the ground and spaces in which we also operate as these hubs, or I'm starting to refer to them as stations in this network. And the network, as I envision it, would be from Maine. So the state of Maine is really the primary ground. But given my origins and my stomping grounds between here and Massachusetts, where I was born and raised, and New York, where I've lived prior to now for many, many years, and still my law practice is based in New York. I'm a New York licensed attorney. I am not a licensed attorney in Maine. And I guess while I'm at it, I should say this is not, and nothing I ever say here, literally ever, is legal advice. Definitely not financial advice. If you hear me mention the words DeFi or cryptocurrency or blockchain, it is not an endorsement. And you should always do your own research about everything that I may say, which are just my own opinions about what the future might look like and how we should or could think about the next 25 years. So KEP25, Keonga-Ellis Projects 25, is the label for this venture, this project. I do many, many projects with an S, because there are many projects. And this one, KEP25, is the big cheese. It's the big one. And it's the one that is consuming a lot of my heart space, my mind share, and my focus right now, to the point where, as I've said earlier in the week, it's time to activate. It's time to activate. Not discuss it, not map it out for 10 weeks and then discuss it some more and then think about it and all that. No, we don't have time. Whatever this can be, must be, it must find a way to operate ASAP. So for now, that is what I am focused on doing, and not waiting until I feel more informed, until I feel like I've done enough research. I love to research. If it were up to me, I would study this for another 12 months, and I wouldn't be on here yapping away with you. I would study this for really quite a lot longer. But the need was so much so. Oh my God. The need is so great. The need is so great. And frankly, it just doesn't feel good to sit around and just be a computer behind the screens person doing knowledge work. I want to I got to get my hands dirty. I got to get out. I got to touch grass. I got to touch snow. I got to touch paper. That's what I've been telling you guys, right? It's like I live and die now. I live and die now with my local paper, the local papers, which are really great in this area. And there's, for as many problems as there are, it's also like very fertile soil for me to nerd out on, because I have a background, a very different practice area than what's exactly involved here, but still things related to infrastructure. My legal background, once upon a time, where I cut my teeth, was in the area of finance and trading, some derivatives, and kind of some deal projects as a lawyer on the trading side, but involving energy infrastructure, so energy markets, electricity, power, natural gas, oil, and freight, and kind of that whole big commodities world. So infrastructure and how things actually work and function has been, a big part of my interests over my entire career. And even the work that I've done in the blockchain space, both as an attorney and as an entrepreneur, has its parts that are really into the nuts and bolts of whether it's proof of work mining or the softer side of things, like how a decentralized protocol governs itself with no one in charge, supposedly. So those are just some opening comments, and I don't want to do a huge intro every single time, but I think every time it's probably different people or a new person watching. So I want to give you some context as to what is going on here. What is she going on about? So that's that by way of intro. As I said, so today I just want to, I think just write stuff down. So sometimes I'll use this time as work time because time is short and the schedule is full. And I'm not here exactly to just sort of be an entertainer or a personality or anything like that. I'm just actually really wanting to do the thing. And so it's very not glossy. Come as I am, come as you are. So where I wanted to start, but actually let me, all right, let me do this before I pull up the PowerPoint. So we're going to work on slides. So I've talked a lot about our communities, our families, ourselves, and our neighbors. And who's my neighbor? Who's my neighbor? And today, just coincidentally, well, maybe not coincidentally, today I stumbled across a story about the Good Samaritan. This is not working. I feel okay. Since I started talking, I'm warming up. This is good. I'm not as cold as I was when I started. So yeah, I was just reading this book this morning and I came across a story about the Good Samaritan. And I thought, I'm going to read that in the meeting. And maybe this is a good starting point to anchor the first fact sheet about what the Rural Rapid Response Network is, what is our purpose, what is the point, what is it that we primarily seek to do, and how is it different from other forms of, or I won't say other, but forms of political engagement, activism, and how we might define better, or more specifically define what citizen adjacent action means to us. So here's my raggedy Bible because I read it. I'm not like you guys. I'm just having it collect dust, or don't have one, which is fine. If you shouldn't have one, don't have one. But I'm just, to those who have one or should have one, just because if you are a person who should have one, and whether you opened yours or not. So I opened mine, and that's why the binding is broken. I opened it a lot. And so I'm going to actually, if you don't mind, if it's okay, I'm going to actually read to you from the book of Luke about the parable of the Good Samaritan. And we are going to use this as a way to outline who is my neighbor? What and who is the Rural Rapid Response Network going to be doing? Why? So you'll see, this is what really caught my attention. Well, first of all, it caught my attention that I just happened to flip to this today because this was on my mind, and I've talked about this story and indirectly. But then here's how it starts. So it's chapter 10, verse 25. And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him. I was like, oh, okay, I hear you. Okay, I'm listening, because I'm a lawyer, right? So I was like, wow, I didn't realize that this story of who's my neighbor and the Good Samaritan was like a response to a lawyer that tried to test Jesus. I was like, that is so perfect. Okay. And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? Okay. That's a big question. He said unto him, he, as in Jesus, said unto him, what is written in the law? How readest thou? And he answering said, the lawyer said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. And he said unto him, Jesus said unto the lawyer, Thou hast answered right, this do, and thou shalt live. But he, willing to justify himself, said unto Jesus, And who is my neighbor? And Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. How many of us could relate to that right now? Did that hit you the way that hit me this morning? I was like, fell among thieves. Oh, what is coming out in the news every hour? How we've been looted, which stripped him of his raiment and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. Who feels half dead like half the time or more than that? We can all relate. So Jesus continues, and by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Like, ooh, no, I'm crossing the street. And likewise, a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. And he went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor to him that fell among thieves? And he said, the lawyer said, He that showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said unto him, Go and do thou likewise. I don't know, maybe it's me. I just thought that I love that. I love that story. So, I mean, I find that very inspiring. I think that's I think there's a lot there. And as I read that this morning, I said, yeah, I think that everything in this parable is exactly what this Rural Rabbit Response Network needs to be about. That's the spirit in which we want to be on the ground, being of service to our communities. And now it's a task of, on a practical level, standing that up, structuring, designing that as an operation, hopefully inspiring someone other than me to want to do the same thing. And then from there, from that bedrock of service, how are we then also going to be engaged in a very focused way? So as I mentioned, infrastructure, energy, and economic development will be the substantive areas that we want to become experts on. We want to become, maybe the smartest people in our town who are not otherwise tasked with those responsibilities. So we're adjacent, citizen adjacent action. We are the people who are not elected to do the work. We are not people who are hired to do the work. We are the people who care about the work, who are impacted by that work. And we are taking our understanding of citizen, well, maybe we didn't even have an understanding of citizen engagement, but we are defining a new role for ourselves. We don't need permission from anyone, right? We don't need to be appointed. We don't need to be elected. These are things that we can just decide we care about and we're going to do. We're going to do not because some disaster has already happened and we have to, but we are going to begin to do things that sustain us in season and out of season. So let me stop yapping and actually pull up the slide. Okay. All right, let me just bear with me one quickie little seckie, because I am a one-woman band and I need to check how. Okay, yeah. All right, I think that'll work really. Oh, actually, no, that's not going to work because I want to actually write on this as we go. So yeah, these are literally going to be meetings where we're learning together. I've just decided to learn with the camera on. And sometimes I think what's going to be very good use of this time for me is to just do some of the writing just like this. Maybe it's boring. You guys can do your other work as well. You can just hang out with me. And you can, of course, also holla at me. Holla at me. Drop something in the chat. Bearing in mind that I'm still getting the hang of the streaming software, so I'm not exactly sure, depending on where you're joining from, if I will see your chat. But go ahead and try me if you're so inclined. Yeah, okay, so that's going to be a better view since I'm going to do some writing. Okay, hang on. 1:30. It's Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday. Okay, what should we call this? RRRNELI5. Draft. Two 625. So what I have said so far is, what is it? Well, I mentioned that I've been looking into looking into the 501c4 category. Okay, a Maine-based double entendre, a Maine-based and a Maine-based social welfare organization founded in 2025 for the purpose of all right, I'm just going to flow with this and probably change a lot. This is going to be too wordy. You are really going to see how I think, or maybe I shouldn't do this live, but give away my secret sauce. But I'll say one thing about actually just doing this stuff live with you all is I will definitely always have 4 hours a week to work on it. It may not be very fun to watch, but that's okay. This is not for entertainment. This is work. This is serious. Like, lives depend on this hour that we're spending together. I mean, I'm smiling, I'm laughing saying that, but I'm dead serious. So that's why I'm going crazy. Deciding to push because yeah, we've got some bumps. We've got many more bumps ahead, and we've got to get ready. Okay. A Maine-based social welfare organization founded in 2025 for the purpose of, again, this is going to be wordy and I'll edit it later, facilitating citizen adjacent action. Maybe I'll just like bullet these, see how that's a good way to start. We do the bullets, and then from the bullets can work on more of a narrative, right? We're facilitating citizen adjacent action, and then of course these will have to be further defined. I'll just put this for now. Caring for our neighbor. Is that spelled right? Did I spell neighbor? Did I spell neighbor right? I think so. Caring for our neighbor. And what I think is my takeaway from that Bible story that's very important. What did the Good Samaritan do, right? What were the first things he did? He stopped. He noticed. He noticed someone in need. Right? And then he showed compassion, right? That was like the dramatic closing statement when Jesus asked the lawyer which one of the three treated this person as a neighbor, and he said, the one that showed, or maybe it was mercy, but it was compassion or mercy. Showed compassion. So I'm a little bit mixing here. I have the bullet point that says caring for our neighbor, and then at the sub bullets, I'm actually saying what it was that the Good Samaritan did. So that's okay. Maybe notice someone in need. I'll put it in more active. Notice someone in need. Show compassion. Fix the spelling. And maybe we can put sub bullets. What does that mean to show compassion? What did he actually do? He picked up the neighbor, guy who had fallen in among thieves, who beat him and robbed him. We all know what that is like, whether that's unfortunately happened to you, like literally, or I'm sure everyone has a story of that happening in some form or fashion, falling in among thieves that beat you up and rob you. So the, here, let me move this up. So the Good Samaritan noticed someone in need, showed compassion. How did he show compassion? He picked up the man who fell among thieves and put him on his beast. You just gotta love the King James. It's so funny sometimes, so poetic. So he put on his horse or his donkey. What can we say? What can we say in a contemporary sense in the context of, all right, this rural rapid response network, he picked him up and put him on his beast. So he like, help me out, somebody. You guys are too quiet. Let me think. Showing compassion means, because here's the point. Here's what I want to get to. And here's where so much philanthropy, charity, and do-gooding misses the mark, because it's all theory and ideas and feel-good and virtue signaling. But, you know, what is the condition of the people? Right? And there's another kind of part of scripture that I think also is relevant about faith without works is dead. So, we can critique the religious communities, the communities of faith and people of faith, and who don't want to get their hands dirty and who feel secure in their beliefs or their concept of salvation. And yet the Bible actually says that faith without works is dead. Not that this is not intended to turn into like a sermon, but sometimes maybe I can't help it. It's not that you're saved by works. It's not that like, oh, I get to heaven, or I'm okay if I do good works. But it's that if you have faith, there will be signs of it. And those signs should look like what we might call good works. And what good does it do to say to someone, be blessed? If they're hungry, if they're naked, if you don't give them food, then what good is your faith? So that's always been like a point with me. And I want to see that this project is really grounded in meeting the actual material needs of people. Because just having the right ideas and the right policies, and this is where, a lot of my dearest friends and colleagues and comrades from school and what have you, I mean, over the years, talking to them, liberal and progressive minded people would get very angry with me when I would point out, I mean, they're bleeding their hearts over these issues, and they would talk about whatever different groups of people or causes. And then if I were to deign to point out, but it's what you're talking about is not, but there's this disconnect, right? Like this community, what about this community that looks like this? And then, oh my gosh, it's like not allowed to do that, not allowed to actually, and this is the, big problem I have with traditional nonprofits and philanthropy and, foundation work, which I have some background in, where, don't upset what we were going to say on the PowerPoint to the board of directors. Like, we don't care that the organization, we don't want to discuss, we don't want to hear that the organization is actually not helping anyone because of all this other crap, this bureaucracy. It's like, la, 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 la. Kianga, just write the report. Don't tell me that what the organizations are telling you isn't working for them. That is not what we need to hear right now. It works for them just fine. It will be just fine. Just have them just do this. So, right. It's like, okay. So we're not going to be that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to spend all of our time and resources with glossy publications and all the wonderful stuff we're doing to help the less fortunate. Like, no, that is not what this is. This is us helping us, just doing the thing. It's not about, anything else. So I want to be extremely grounded in the works, the things that are needful for people, and not just make for a nice sounding brochure or fundraiser to attract whomever, the way things work. You guys know. I don't have to tell you. I bet you all of you who are watching this right now know exactly what I'm talking about, and you're tired of it. I mean, especially if you have gotten involved in the DAO space or Web3 from the perspective of grassroots work, regenerative practices, is blockchain and decentralization using the Internet of Value, is that a new unlock for cooperative models? All that. If you've been into that work, especially, then I know that you know what I'm talking about as far as faith without works, when it really boils down to it. So we want to be very tangible about what we do every day. Within this, it's kind of a nested set of preoccupations, but at its core, we want this network to operate and be of service. So show compassion in the case of the neighbor. Well, I'll just say pick up our neighbor. Pick up our neighbors, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, right? Kianga, this does not have to be like the final version, the perfect version. Just spit out some words. Pick up our neighbors. Provide, and this also is probably too ambitious. So I'm just gonna draft points from the story, and then of course, we can refine, we can chisel this. This is like putting together the marble blocks, right? This isn't the Statue of David yet. That's gonna take some hacking, but these are like the big building blocks. So for anyone watching, this is not Kianga saying that the Rural Rapid Response Network is going to do all of these things. This is just, I think, an exercise to ground the ELI5, to ground the initial fact statement, to get to a mission statement, to get to a statement of purpose, and then to begin to outline, what are going to be the initial operations, what all that. It's just setting out, casting a wide net, anchored in fundamental values, right? Does that make sense? And then, so I'm not going to try to think about which of these things are relevant. I'm just setting it all out from the story. And then, and then we have something to work with. So we pick up our neighbors, we provide shelter. Healing. Should I say healing? So I'm thinking now about he poured oil and wine on his wounds. Minister care. Did I use the word care? Oh, caring for our neighbors. Okay. Administer healing. I'll put that. Administer healing. Then what did he do? He paid the bill. So what is that? And I love that detail in the story of he prepaid. He paid and then prepaid and then said, "I'm good." Just had a light bulb. He's like, "And I'm good for whatever else you spend." So in other words, he said, "Spare no expense. This guy's on my tab." So there's like a credit aspect here. I'm always going to find a way to bring stuff back to finance. You saw him get excited. Oh, there's maybe there's some credit. There's like a financial product I could design in here. But I'm going to bracket that so it's kind of like, but what's the bullet point on that? Cover cover like necessary expenses. I'll just write that for now. Costs. And if I just leave credit bracketed, you think we'll remember? Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'll break that out separately because I think that's it. I think that kind of covers the things that happened in that parable. So it's not so much extended credit. He didn't extend. I mean, really, it's the shopkeeper that extended credit in a sense, right? How can we talk? How do we articulate that for our purposes? The Good Samaritan prepaid, right? And then what was really operated like as a surety, right? Credit surety. All right. So, yeah. Okay. Save as. I think I'm exhausted already. I think that was like an excellent. That was an excellent little session. So what did we write? A Maine-based social welfare organization. So Rural Rapid Response Network, ELI5. Oh, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, because for a long time, I didn't know what that is. I don't know how widely that's used outside of kind of crypto subculture. It stands for explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Yeah. So that's sort of not what I ended up writing. But that's what we want to get to. We want to get to that, short and sweet little soundbite of what this thing is. And at this rate, that could take quite a while. But for now, I think this is a good start. We fleshed out some important things. A Maine-based social welfare organization, 501c4. So that's different from a 501c3. Some interesting differences there. You can Google that if you don't already know. Founded in 2025. It hasn't been founded, but that's what this conversation is about actually going ahead and incorporating it. For the purpose of facilitating citizen-adjacent action and caring for our neighbor. I actually think that that's going to be, that in my mind as I think of all the things, those could really capture everything. That's those two concepts. But under caring for our neighbor, we wrote, to put some meat on the bones, what is caring? I think we wrote, what is caring? We did not really bullet here who's our neighbor. We talked about the parable of the Good Samaritan to give us a picture. But what does caring look like? Because our faith without works is dead. We don't want dead faith, so we need some works. And these are the works. These are the actions. Notice when someone is in need. Show compassion. Then we're like, okay, those are just words. What does show compassion look like? It means literally pick up your neighbor, put them on your beast. Take them to a shelter. Pay for the shelter. Administer healing. And be a credit or a guarantor. Ooh, that's another good word. Guarantor for whatever's required to make sure that they're okay and get them on their feet. All right. Good work, guys. I think we have a shorter meeting today because I'm exhausted. I mean, that was a lot, but that was big. I finally wrote something. Down about the Rural Rapid Response Network. It was a breakthrough. So yeah, I think that's a lot of work for the day. I think I could just knock off. Just knock off from here. But actually, no, I wanted to say we are going to wrap it up. Actually, we are just going to go for another like 2 minutes because unless I get verbose. You know what I'm finding is really interesting about doing these live streams? As I talk, as I monologue out loud, things come to me that wouldn't come to me if I were just on my own researching or studying or writing or just thinking in my own head, which I do a lot, a lot of that. I'm one of these people that does have an inner monologue like all the time. It's very noisy in here. And some things don't come to me. I mean, things have come to me like on the spot as I'm talking to you all in these meetings that I don't know that would otherwise kind of click. And so that's been fun. It just happened to be, this is the second time this week, or maybe it happened last week. No, it was just this week. This is a new thing. And maybe as I'm getting more comfortable, this credit, surety, and guarantor piece of that parable yeah, there's some there. There's some there, and I don't know exactly what it is. We'll see, but the interim report that we were going through for a number of weeks from the State of Maine Infrastructure Resilience Rebuilding Commission was appointed by the governor last year, issued their interim report in November. There's been some legislation proposed in the state to implement some of their recommendations, and then a final report is coming due in May. And we've talked about that report, of course, is all about finance and financing and the peril, even before Trump won the election, and we've seen the changes that are coming down the pike. This report was ringing the alarm bell about the state's dependency on federal sources. The state needs its own homegrown financing options, and the option or the potential to stand up a sort of insurance fund is part of the new legislation, part of the interim recommendations. It's great because we need to see, we absolutely must have some massive funding solutions that are not going to be dependent on the federal government. That is now no longer something Kiaga is saying, or I mean, other people are saying it too, but that's also a reality in ways that we just wouldn't have even imagined 4 weeks ago, as to the necessity of solving for financing for the infrastructure needs, which connects very heavily with energy, and not to lose the point about the proposed legislation and a state infrastructure fund, is that it's tied to a federal program. So even though it was a It's an initiative for a state, a homegrown to begin to make a start in a kind of homegrown financing buffer. Uh, yeah, it was dependent on federal grants, a federal grant program, and we don't know if that's still going to be standing, or even if it is standing. In my mind, it's quite apparent that continuing down the path of a layered bureaucracy of grants through nonprofits that ultimately are coming from the federal government is no way to run a state. And for possibly many reasons that we won't get into on the show, because I said we were stop at 2:00. But this concept now that we found when we analyzed the story of the Good Samaritan, we found out that a Good Samaritan extended, well, there were two sides of it, right? We had the shopkeeper, the innkeeper, extend credit to a third party on behalf of a neighbor. And we saw that Good Samaritan operate as a kind of guarantor of those resources that were being extended. So, oh my God, it's a lot. I thought the snowstorm was supposed to miss the coast. It's not missed the coast. I'm thinking, okay. I don't want to just keep you guys watching me like when the wheels are turning. But basically, I think it's going to be interesting to think about this project as possibly having its own, like a self-operating financial model within it, right? Where we can look to some of our friends in decentralized finance and that's potentially something useful for this technology. I'm convinced, otherwise I wouldn't be in that industry for so long. There really is something very powerful and important and useful that's in there somewhere. In there somewhere. I swear this something to do with Bitcoin or these cryptocurrencies and blockchain. We're going to find a way to make it good for humanity. And I'm very much I'm still believing in that. And so, all right, I'll put a bookmark. I'll put a pin in it for now, because I obviously just don't have any idea what I'm talking about. But I just see something. I see something in the story. There's nothing new under the sun. There's so much about money and banking and finance and business in these parables. You guys, seriously, I read them. I get so much insight from them. And I think that there's something here that is giving us a clue as to how, as an organization, we can design our service, and that maybe there's a financial primitive using decentralized finance that can really empower us to be independent and stay independent and not have the kind of frailty that other organizations are facing. And they're not sort of set up to get themselves out of it. We don't want to repeat the same. I'm 100,000% not interested in just remaking the same wheel in terms of, oh, I'm starting a nonprofit and then I'm going to have the same, trifecta of barriers and problems to be effective and to do the work and to not be compromised and to be resilient, to be anti-fragile. Like, we're not doing like the typical thing here. And we're going to take full advantage of all the new technologies, the new primitives, the new concepts around distributed, decentralized network communities, and currencies that work on the internet, new ways of financing and using different types of tokenized collateral. Okay, I'm getting into the nerd stuff, which I don't want to do. And we're gonna not spend a ton of time early on talking about decentralized finance stuff. Well, but maybe we will, because now I saw this thing in the Bible that the story of the Good Samaritan involved like quite a lot of finance. It was a story about guys. Did you know it was a story about banking? Oh my God, we discovered it. You learned, you saw it, you heard it here first. You heard it here first. So, okay. I think that's it for today. A shorter session, but I feel good. I just, sometimes you just like get something on paper, just make a start. And I want to be really aggressive in the month of February of mapping out these basics of how to get something going that's operating at some skeletal level. We can use the Kianka Ellis Project House in here as a base. So we have a few things that I'm just going to throw into the hat, and hopefully allows us to be like a real thing and really begin to make a difference, begin to be value added. And I hope that some of you the wheels may be turning of how you can get started where you live, how you could do something similar. And if you're in Maine or Massachusetts or, New England, upstate, central New York, then holla at me, because that's, there's a regional geography that we'll really be looking to operate in at the end of the day. So with that, I will say bye-bye. If you're in Maine or, parts of Northeast that are getting snowed on, stay safe and warm, and wherever you are, same applies. See you next week. Bye-bye.